What if death knocked louder, so loud that it silenced not just a third of Europe, but nearly everyone? What if the Black Death, that infamous pandemic of the 14th century, wasn't merely a catastrophe, but a civilization-ending event? Imagine a world where the plague swept across continents with even greater speed and lethality, killing 70, 80, even 90% of populations. Where entire cities vanished overnight, languages died with their last speakers, and the Renaissance never bloomed. This isn't just a grim fantasy, it's a terrifying near miss. And in this alternate timeline, we follow the echoes of that darker path all the way into our own modern age, where everything, from governments to technology to your very existence, might never have happened. Let's start with the moment the knife twists. In our real history, the Black Death is estimated to have killed between 30% and 60% of Europe's population between 1347 and 1351. But let's push that dial forward. Suppose the plague mutates into an even more virulent airborne form. With the medical knowledge of the time wholly unprepared, containment is impossible. Trade, travel, and even rumors spread faster than containment ever could. Town after town falls. Not a third, not half, but 9 out of 10 people die in some areas. Cities like Florence, Paris, London, and Constantinople become empty husks. The bells toll for the dead, then stop entirely, because no one remains to ring them. With this level of death, civilization doesn't just take a hit, it collapses. The feudal system, already cracking under demographic strain, now completely unravels. There are no peasants left to till the land, no artisans to fill guilds. Nobles die without heirs. Monarchies fracture. Whole regions descend into anarchy. In England, the Plantagenet line crumbles, replaced by petty warlords fighting over ghost towns. In France, the 100 Years' War ends not with victory, but silence. Both sides simply die out. Religious institutions fare no better. The Catholic Church, already struggling to explain the plague, now faces utter ruin. With monasteries emptied and priests dead in droves, its authority vanishes. The papacy becomes irrelevant. Christianity, at least in its medieval institutional form, fragments or fades in much of Europe. Millenarian cults and doomsday sects spring up instead, often violently. In some places, the old pagan traditions briefly flicker back to life as desperate survivors grope for any meaning amidst the carnage. Outside Europe, the consequences are just as profound. The Silk Road becomes a river of death. Central Asia, already ravaged by the plague's first waves, loses entire Khanate. The Mongol Empire, still lingering in some form, collapses more completely. In China, the Yuan dynasty faces the same fate as Europe: widespread death, rebellion, and fragmentation. The Ming might never rise. Trade across Asia is severed. Knowledge stops flowing. Isolation replaces exchange. With population densities shattered, the global trajectory of empire, economy, and innovation changes forever. Now let's dig into the true rot. Knowledge dies with the dead. Manuscripts are lost. Scholars disappear. The fragile network of universities, only just beginning to blossom in Europe, is decimated. The spark of the Renaissance, fueled by rediscovered classical texts and intellectual exchange, is extinguished. There's no Florence to host the Medici, no Leonardo to draw, no Copernicus to ponder the stars. Science stalls. The scientific revolution doesn't arrive in the 16th or 17th century. It might never come at all. What about exploration? In our timeline, European colonial expansion began in the late 1400s, driven by centralized states with resources to fund risky voyages. But in a depopulated, fragmented, post-plague Europe, such states don't exist. Spain remains a patchwork of empty castles. Portugal lacks the people to sail. England never emerges from feudal anarchy. The Americas remain unknown to Europe, not just for decades, but perhaps for centuries more. The great age of discovery never happens. This means no Columbian exchange, no wheat in the Americas, no horses for the plains tribes, no smallpox wiping out the indigenous peoples. On the flip side, no gold for European empires, no sugar colonies, no Atlantic slave trade. Africa, the Americas, and Europe remain largely isolated from one another, their fates unentwined. Let's project forward another few centuries into this alternate world. Without the Renaissance, the Enlightenment also withers on the vine. There's no Newton, no Galileo, no Descartes. Without Enlightenment ideals, there is no revolution in America, no Declaration of Rights, no French Revolution. Monarchies persist longer, but they are feebler, more fractured, less global. Democracy never finds fertile ground. And the Industrial Revolution? That's the real ghost. Steam engines, mechanized looms, railroads, none of these emerge in a fractured, regressed Europe. The scientific groundwork hasn't been laid. The economic systems aren't developed. The populations are too small, too disconnected. Technological progress slows to a crawl, while China, the Islamic world, or India might retain enough cohesion to advance. They too were touched by the plague. Any surviving civilizations are wary, traumatized, cautious. Let's pause to ask, what does daily life look like in 1800 in this world? Picture this. Europe is a patchwork of medieval city-states, ruins, and superstitious villages. Some people still live in the shells of Roman or Gothic structures, not understanding who built them. Roads are overgrown. Trade is local. Agriculture is subsistence level. Literacy is rare. Most people have never met someone who can write. Diseases still stalk the land, but without a scientific worldview, they're blamed on curses or spirits. People fear books, strangers, even the stars. The witch hunts of our real history, amplified, longer lasting, and bloodier. The rest of the world. The Islamic world, spared slightly better in some pockets, might become the global center of learning and trade. But without Europe as a rival or partner, even it stagnates. The golden age of Islamic science becomes a bronze twilight. The Indian subcontinent sees its own empires rise and fall, but without global trade, they remain regionally focused. China, ever cyclical in its dynasties, may recover under a new order, but its maritime ambitions fade without global competitors. The idea of a globalized world slips further away. By the time we reach the 20th century in our timeline, we're landing on the moon. In this darker world, the brightest light is perhaps a crude steam engine being used to pull carts in a walled city of 10,000 people, guarded against the plague's return by charms and ritual. There is no electricity grid, no antibiotics, no telephone. The germ theory of disease is a lost dream. Medicine is bloodletting and prayer. Now let's talk morality. One dark twist in this world is that suffering creates monsters. With no Enlightenment ideals, human rights are not just neglected, they never develop. Slavery may continue for centuries in many parts of the world, unchallenged by abolitionist thought. Women remain deeply marginalized, their status dictated entirely by patriarchal systems reinforced by superstition. Ethnic tensions are worse, not better, because people live in isolated communities, each distrusting outsiders, often taught that the plague was brought by the other. Worse still, genocide becomes ritualized. In times of panic, when plagues recur or famines strike, communities lash out violently. Entire villages of outsiders may be wiped out to cleanse the land. History becomes a tale of micro-apocalypses, playing out over and over again. Trauma is the foundation of culture. Fear is passed down like heirlooms. But what of art, you ask? Surely even a doomed world produces beauty. And yes, in a way. But art in this world is darker, more grotesque. Music is discordant. Painting is obsessed with death, rot, and salvation. There are no joyful landscapes, no playful allegories. Drama is replaced by pageants of martyrdom. Literature, where it survives, is saturated with apocalyptic prophecy. Now let's move to the modern implications. Imagine you're born in 2025 in this alternate world. You live in a fortified village. You've never seen the ocean. You've never heard of electricity. Your parents tell you to avoid the old ruins where the ghosts of the dead still whisper. You don't go to school. You learn from oral tradition. You sleep with charms under your pillow. You've never been vaccinated. Half your siblings died before age 5. When someone gets a fever, the entire village hides in their homes and prays. There's no internet, no global news, no airplane in the sky, just birds and maybe 1 or 2 stories about dragons beyond the mountains. There are no nations in the modern sense, just local warlords, priest kings, or councils of elders. Maybe a few centralized states have emerged in Asia, where populations eventually rebounded, but nothing remotely like our United Nations. The idea of a global citizen would be utterly alien. Cultures remain isolated. Languages are more diverse because travel is rare, but literacy remains painfully low. Your entire life is spent within a 20-mile radius. And here's the kicker. Humanity might be biologically different too. The plague, being so catastrophic, acts as a brutal filter. Those who survived had some genetic resistance, perhaps immune traits passed down. In this world, modern humans have been shaped, not just socially and psychologically by the plague, but also biologically. And yet, this evolution doesn't make people stronger in other ways. Without vaccines, antibiotics, or hygiene, the body still loses more often than it wins. So how does this world end? It might not. It may simply linger, slowly, painfully. Population gradually rises again, but technological progress limps behind. There's no clear enlightenment moment, no industrial explosion, no space race. If anything, it takes 500 to 1,000 years longer than in our timeline for humanity to reach where we are today. And by then, the Earth may be warmer, less forgiving. And you, the person watching this, would never have existed. The odds of your ancestors surviving a 90% death rate across the world are astronomically low. The names you know, the cities you live in, the books you love, they're ghosts in this timeline. So next time you hear about the Black Death, remember, it could have been so much worse. History is written not just by the victors, but by the survivors.